Good day, everyone, and welcome to the Akalytica Lounge, where we discuss digital marketing, online selling, entrepreneurship, sustainability, and stuff like that. So, everything we do is based on what we do on akalytica.com, the place where you can have a home online, you can have an address online, actually. Today, we're just going to be talking about random topics, literally. So I'll be joined by Mmathebe, uh, and we're just going to be, just hustling around with different problems, solutions, ideas, and stuff like that. So it's very non-specific. It's just us exploring. So when I talk about Akalytica, this is what I'm talking about, where you can create your unique page with ease. So you don't need to code. And as a creative or an artisan, you can build your personal or business page. You can track your visitors. You can see the analytics. And it's very, very easy. It's just drag and drop. No coding. You don't need to know HTML. We also have a lot of tools that you can use with our AI image generators and other lots of other functionality. So I'm going to call Mmathebe so that we can start this conversation and then see what she has in store for us. Okay, so it's going to be an audio. It's going to be an audio interview. So we're just waiting for her to respond. Mmathebe, how are you doing today?
Good morning, it's I'm good. How you doing?
I'm all right. Welcome to the Akalytica Lounge. I'm really glad to have you this morning. Mm. Are you well?
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm honored to be here.
Nice.
And well done and congratulations on launching the Akalytica Lounge.
Yes, thank you. So you are literally the guinea pig. Like we're like, okay, let's just experiment this. Let's see. And uh, what what I discovered was that when you try and schedule Zoom and have video calls, people are just so busy, but they find it easier just to get an audio call and say, okay, let's talk. So basically, I'm on video and you are just audio. Yeah, literally. So feel free to relax and yeah, let's see what we can talk about today. So, yeah, tell me, who is Mmathebe? What are you all about?
Sure, that's a loaded question.
I don't know. It's an open question, eh?
Yeah. So I think fundamentally I believe in authenticity.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that is very important to navigate life, knowing what that looks like for yourself
Nice.
so that the things you do, the people you interact with, the different roles you play, have one consistent version of you,
Mm-hmm.
a almost like your DNA. So
Okay.
you can already see how actually with DNA, that's ultimately really unique and it's really about you and how authentic you are. So I think it's important to be authentic.
Mm.
I'm certainly very much authentic, and that means tapping into your passions,
Nice.
tapping into the things you like, and doing that in a way that, makes you happy and makes you find yourself. So things that I'm passionate about, for example, about like entrepreneurship, development,
Mm-hmm.
you know, s-
That,
contributing to a world in which people really can thrive and be the best versions of themselves.
wow, wow. I like how you talk about the uniqueness of DNA. I mean, the geneticists and biologists tell us that um, we're unique, even DNA wise, just like fingerprints and stuff like that. So that's quite profound. All right. So professionally, what do you specialize in? I mean, as in not necessarily naming your company or whatever, just generally like what do you do on a daily basis, and what value do you bring to the world?
Yes, so I'm an investment professional by trade. Um, so I'm a qualified accountant, chartered accountant,
Nice.
who actually found passion in investing in new businesses, startups, um, and even new ventures, within corporate supply chains or corporates themselves.
Mhm.
And the reason I do that is really to create new value. I believe that the best way to contribute to economic growth and development is to firstly create new value, and
Mhm.
then secondly back the people that may not always have access to the right capital or the right mentorship,
Yeah,
and also develop products and services that target some of those people as well. So that's what I do.
that's what you do. Wow. Okay, you know what? I think I'm going to zone in on one thing that just popped up in my mind as you were talking. Because in South Africa generally, the most pertinent issue right now is job creation, and we are in the digital age. We are in the AI, sorry, excuse me, AI age. So I remember very well when you did your masters, you wrote about high growth entrepreneurs being the catalyst in terms of job creation, and you were advocating for the funding of high growth enterprises, right? And there was a
Yes,
distinction
yes.
between, is it SMEs and entrepreneurs or something like that, or startups? So
Yeah.
yeah, please just tell me more about that research of yours. I'm a bit rusty, so I've forgotten. So just remind me about that one. Yeah.
Yeah, so my research focused on a breed of enterprises called high growth enterprises.
Mm,
And these are enterprises that grow their revenues by at least 20, on average 20% per annum
mm,
over at least 3 years or 4 years and so on. And this means they're actually rapidly growing, you know,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
both from a revenue perspective, um, from an customer adoption perspective,
Yes.
as well as job creation. So what these sorts of enterprises do is that they create the most jobs
Mm,
in the economy. And research shows that actually there are a very small number of them. From
yes.
a percentage perspective, they're like 6% in any economy of these high growth enterprises, and that they create the most jobs in any economy.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
So the key thing was to understand them.
Yeah.
Why are they such rapid job creators?
Mm,
Why do they grow so much? And what is different about them? And what we found through the research, or
mm,
what my research covered, was that they ultimately think differently. So the founders of these enterprises think differently.
yes.
They are, for example, when they set up a business, they are innovative. So they don't necessarily just copy
Excuse
and
me. Yeah.
copy and paste a business.
Mm.
They don't do Me Too type of businesses,
Oh, Me
right?
Too type of businesses. Okay, what are
No,
those?
don't do Me Too. So these are like, you sell a box, you
Mm,
sell a white box, and then I come up, and I see actually it's guy's doing very well selling a white box, and so I do it too.
okay. Okay.
So these are not those kind of businesses. These are businesses that they set out to really change the world or to solve problems that people aren't really solving.
Mm,
And if they even if their product is, similar,
mm.
to one that may currently exist,
Yeah.
there's some magic in there. They're doing it there's some secret sauce in there. They are either, you know, for example, uh, serving the customer differently, or
Okay. So can I just
yeah.
interject there? Um,
Hmm.
so when I look at restaurants, for example,
Hmm.
technically they are Me Too businesses, but then every other restaurant has got their secret sauce, literally, right? So,
Yes,
so,
yes.
so is a restaurant a Me Too business because they're not necessarily changing the world in a way; they're just providing a service. What do you think of that?
So high growth enterprises and their founders have a combination of things, right? So
Mm.
there's the product, there's how they have their secret sauce, but then it's about how they scale. So they
Okay.
scale, um, they're not just local businesses
Mm.
in their local communities, right?
Mm.
They are growing at an exponential scale.
Mm.
They start off in their local communities, or they sort of start off even international on day one.
Yeah.
Um, so so that's another concept around that. And then
Mm.
the other thing is that the way the founders behave is also important, because the founders are proactive and they lead the market. So
Mm.
they will sort of say, they're not going to wait for a new development. They're the ones trying out a new development and
Okay.
serving customers in a different way.
And
So
then,
the long and short
mm.
of it is that, the question is, how fast are those businesses growing? And then once you can answer that,
Mm.
then we can start to analyze the behaviors of those entrepreneurs.
Wow.
So not all restaurants, for example, are Me Too businesses, simply because some of them are global businesses.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm.
Some of them, actually, sort of that when you go into that particular restaurant, there
Mm.
is some special or unique way in which they serve food, or the experience that they give you. So it really comes down to, behavior, market presence, and how fast
Mm.
they grow.
Mm. But you see now, if I mean, recently I was watching the McDonald's story, how they grew from the brothers, the two McDonald's brothers had a
Yes,
shop, then they
yes,
brought in a guy, and this guy literally went on a rampage, opening up franchises, and it became a global business, right? So,
yes,
but now you find that for McDonald's, when they're growing exponentially, maybe opening a store every day or something like that, their number of employees is also increasing proportional to the
yes,
number of shops that are coming up. But then you find in
yes,
Silicon Valley, they talk about scaling, whereby the rate of growth, it far outweighs the rate of cost accumulation, So, based
yes.
on the Silicon Valley explanation, definition, and the McDonald's model, would you say uh, McDonald's was not high growth, or what? How do you explain that? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So McDonald's definitely a high growth business. I think all the things you've spoken about, um, you know, talk to it. It is a currently global business.
Mm.
It has really changed. I mean, it's open 24 hours,
Mm.
7 days a week. It's really changed the fast food game. You can
Yeah.
see how they've led the competition. You
Yeah.
can see the behavior of the entrepreneurs that they brought on board
Yeah.
later on, how they were, proactive, risk taking,
Mm.
innovative, leading the competition. So, and ultimately, the outcome of all of that
Mm.
is job creation.
Job
I
creation.
think it's important to understand that high growth enterprises don't necessarily set out to create a whole lot of jobs,
Mm.
but because of the way they behave, they ultimately create a
Okay.
lot of jobs, or
So
the most jobs in the economy.
that's quite
Now,
an interesting. Sorry. That's quite an interesting point, right? Because
Mhm.
there's this argument in South Africa that says that uh, let's focus on job creation. Should we be focusing on job creation, or should we be focusing on the key drivers that result in job creation? Is job creation an outcome, or it's something that we can actually manipulate and say, okay, let's increase job creation, let's decrease it, we can manipulate it? What do you think?
yeah, so job creation is definitely an outcome, um, because an outcome of business performance, right? So, um, but I think obviously South Africa it has really high unemployment, and so the key thing is, how do we actually solve that? How do we get people to work, and so
Mm.
on?
Mm.
So, that is important as a focus area. But in terms of, so obviously it's not going to happen on its own or in a vacuum.
Yes.
What matters is, which businesses do we want to invest in? And these, for example, would be high
Mm-hmm.
growth enterprises.
That's it.
They ultimately create, as an outcome of uh, what they do and how they behave, and
Mm-hmm.
the resources that they use, they create the most jobs.
Mm-hmm.
Then the question would be, what are the enablers of that? And then let's, from a policy perspective, think about how do we enable these
Yes.
high growth enterprises to create jobs.
That's it.
That would be the right sort of focus area. I want to go back to the conversation around the Silicon Valley and how,
Okay. Okay. Sorry, I
you
catch you
know,
there,
how,
right?
yes, and how some of those and how some of those businesses,
uh,
have really high growth revenues
mm,
and not necessarily the one-to-one proportion of job creation.
okay.
And you would see that primarily in tech businesses,
Mm,
and AI and these sort of businesses that actually are more automation focused or technology focused.
mm,
It's important though to understand that what the business model ultimately creates. So
mm,
if you look at, for example, Uber,
mm-hmm.
it doesn't necessarily, it actually redefines what a job is. You
Okay.
know, it redefines what a job is, and it says, actually, a job is an income opportunity. All right.
Mm,
And you can see how all over the world that business has contributed to creating these income opportunities of these people that are, delivery, the
mm,
driver, the
yeah.
delivery guys, the delivery sort of these independent income earners.
Yeah.
That is incredible because what that does is that while the core team in Uber may be three or four people,
Mm,
the extension of that business model into the economy
yeah.
has an incredible multiply effect.
Nice.
Um,
Nice.
so I think it's important to have that into perspective. And so any business that can really do that, I
Mm,
think is incredible for the economy, incredible for the job creation that we're trying to solve for in South Africa. um, you may look at manufacturing businesses and say, well, they create one to one.
mm,
But then the question is, with the impact of, let's say, technology,
yeah.
what are the other industries, ecosystem enablers that they're unlocking in the economy from an income perspective? So you'll find that there's a whole value chain that they're now unlocking by changing production methods or changing, how they source and so on.
Mm,
So those are the different ways of thinking about
uh,
jobs and job creation,
interesting.
particularly as technology continues to advance.
So, as an entrepreneur, okay, maybe I've just found a problem, or I want to leave my corporate job and then I want to jump into the deep end of entrepreneurship. Should I go in with a focus to create jobs, or should I, like, where does creating jobs come from? Is it something that comes along the way? It's inevitable because you have grown, or like, how should I think about jobs as an entrepreneur who's just starting out?
Yes, so I said already that
Mm,
jobs are an outcome.
mm,
Then they can never be the first starting point. Obviously, the policymakers care about job creation
yeah,
in order to solve the problem. But as an entrepreneur, you care about solving a real problem that exists.
yeah.
And that's why I said high growth enterprises, the way they behave, you know, they they spot opportunities, they are innovative, they lead the curve in terms of the kind of problems that they're solving. So that is important from a thinking perspective because,
Mm,
you know, y- y- the person who's going to really help you grow your revenue is the customer.
yeah.
Now, as an entrepreneur, your focus should be on the customer. What does your potential customer need?
Mm-hmm.
What is a key problem that you're trying to solve for? Just back to the McDonald's example,
Yeah.
Clayton Christensen used McDonald's as a very important basis or example for innovation theory
Mm,
because that's where the question came up for him to say, what is the customer job to be done? You know,
yes.
and in optimizing that, McDonald's actually found that actually customers keep buying these milkshakes. why
Yes.
they buy these milkshakes, and
Mm.
how do we understand this a lot better? And they
Mm.
found that actually these milkshakes keep them a bit fuller during the day, in the morning. It's
Mm.
something to hold on to while they're going to work.
Mm.
Um, and this is, and in optimizing their operations, this is how they can improve that and sell a little bit more of it.
Yeah.
So it's really about understanding that, because that's what's going to grow your business, your
Mm.
customer,
Mm.
what the problem is, how relevant it is, how big it is. It's
Mm.
important to understand how big the problem is,
Yeah.
and ultimately how you can grow rapidly to make sure that you solve that problem and
Mm.
gain market share. That's
Nice.
what an entrepreneur should be focusing on. Um, Ultimately, the behaviors that you want
Mm.
really about how well you think about it, how you lead the curve.
Mm.
How sometimes you don't have to lead the curve, but it's also how quickly you learn from the mistakes of others,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So by learning from the mistakes of others, and quickly incorporating that, then it's really about how you grow quite fast in that market.
Mm.
So that should be the focus of an entrepreneur. The job creation is an outcome
Mm.
of how well you're able to solve those problems, how well you're able to, compete in the market.
Wow. Okay. No, that's quite interesting. So, I mean, you've been on both sides as an entrepreneur, as a funder, as an LP, right? And GP as well. So you've gone through all the different states in the entrepreneurial ecosystem. So, tell me, how best can we support entrepreneurs so that they can grow and become, successful, just like we read about in TechCrunch and stuff like that? Because I don't think we are producing enough entrepreneurs that are growing beyond the borders of South Africa. It seems like most of our startups are just localized, and then we survive through going from program to program incubation, and you get these lessons on business model canvas over and over and over again, and people give you lessons instead of giving you business, kind of thing. So what do you think, what's the best way of supporting uh, entrepreneurs, especially the ones that are using cutting edge technology like AI, IoT, etc? Yeah.
So supporting entrepreneurs it requires an ecosystem approach. What that means is you need a couple of people who are very good at what they do and provide certain services to entrepreneurs.
Mm.
So, for example, um, if you are a financier or a funding provider,
Mm.
you need to understand the sort of entrepreneur you want to support, the sort of businesses that you want to support.
Mm.
So if you are in, for example, you want to support high growth enterprises,
Mm.
it's about understanding the capital requirements of those businesses. What kind of capital do they need and when, right? So, for
Yeah.
example, a business in, as an example, a cutting, like the one you mentioned, cutting edge AI.
Yeah.
That's not the only type of high growth enterprise that exists. Could be a business in any sector, really. It
Yeah.
could be in, the beauty industry or in the arts industry, whatever the
Mm.
case is.
Mm.
Understanding that the kind of product they're thinking in terms of how they want to go to market
Mm.
is really about, it's really about understanding that and figuring out actually these guys need patient capital, which would be equity funding
Yeah.
as opposed to a loan provider.
Mm.
A loan provider would say, well, if there's a contract to fund a particular thing, that's it. That's what that kind of you know entrepreneur needs.
Mm-hmm.
But also understand the outcomes that go with that, right?
Mm.
As well. So I think it's really about, as a key player in the ecosystem,
Mm.
understanding what each entrepreneur needs, what kind of entrepreneur you're supporting, and the stage of development as to where they are. So there are other services that are important as well in the ecosystem. So I mentioned the funding piece. It's not the only one,
Mm.
but there's stuff around, how do we enable entrepreneurs to have access to markets?
Mm.
And that is where, for example, Akalytica comes in. where you're
Yeah.
saying, how can we make an entrepreneur visible, more visible, so that
Mm,
they improve their chances of communicating to their customers,
mm,
whether they are local customers, whether they are international customers, and how do we, um, compile a digital presence uh, for them to really be, communicate the problem that they're solving, the
mm,
successes of them solving that problem. And that's one way of providing access to market. A lot of people think access to market is simply about corporate supply chains.
mm.
It's not only that, right?
Yeah.
Corporate supply chains are very helpful, but that's not the only way, especially for businesses that don't always have access to those corporate supply chains.
Mm,
Digital and online presence and
mm,
work that Kalitika does is very important in providing access to markets.
mm.
Um, and
Eh,
then also there's a layer of sales there as well. So how do we help entrepreneurs sell
mm.
a lot better online?
That's it.
And so that is
Yeah.
another component
So
in which digital can help. Yeah.
I'm just gonna go back to your research paper because I think last week I was talking to one of your lecturers, Dr. Edward Murimbika, right?
Hmm.
And he kept on emphasizing on the idea of entrepreneurial orientation, EO,
Yes.
and I am seeing on your paper that you had quite a focus on EO as well, entrepreneurial orientation. So if I'm somebody who's never heard of entrepreneurial orientation, maybe I'm a funder in an ESD program or a VC, and how can I use entrepreneurial orientation as a mechanism for understanding which entrepreneurs to support and how to support them?
Yes. So entrepreneur orientation really is about how entrepreneurs behave and how they think.
Mm-hmm.
So, which comes back to a lot of the stuff I was talking about. So, fundamentally, what EO says is by you can predict the outcome of a particular entrepreneur,
Mm-hmm.
or by the way they behave, by the way they think.
Yeah.
It's not just for entrepreneurs as well; it could be for corporates, for large corporates as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, what that it says is the key fundamental pieces around that. There are three elements to it. The first one is entrepreneurship is really about taking risk. So, and trying out new things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And being able to experiment and learn from that. And, an entrepreneur needs to be able to try out new things. Those entrepreneurs that are trying out new things, they are experimenting quite fast and learning from it. They are the risk takers in accordance to entrepreneurial orientation. But it's
Mm-hmm.
also about to manage that risk and understand how you navigate that risk as well.
Uh,
So that's the first piece, and
so just a quick one. So let's say you say entrepreneur orientation has got like what? How many constructs?
so it's basically three elements,
Three.
three elements to it.
Uh-huh.
So you need to take on risk, experiment.
Risk. Second one,
Risk taking. The second one is you need to be proactive. So what
proactive.
that means is you are, I spoke earlier about, leading your competition.
Yes.
That's where I speak about having, it's not really about a Me Too business. It's about
Mm.
how can I develop something
Yeah.
that will lead my competitors? Because fundamentally, your business is competing with others, right?
Yes. Yes.
But you lead your competition. You're the first to launch things. You are constantly thinking about, and it also is linked to the experimentation piece because it comes
Mm.
back to, what is your um, stance
Yes.
to leading competition. So definitely Me Too businesses are not very helpful here because it's really about, am I the first to launch new
Mm.
things? Am I the first to
Yeah.
think about how I solve a problem in a different way?
Yes.
So that's being proactive.
And the
The
third
third
one,
one is about innovation. And
innovation.
innovation is about doing things differently.
Yeah.
So it's fundamentally doing things differently. We are shifting, the way people behave. We're solving their problems completely differently.
Mm.
So these three elements are obviously interrelated because, to do things differently, you need to have an element of risk taking.
Yeah.
And you also need to be the first to market those from a proactivity perspective.
So tell me, what if I have only one out of the three elements? Would you call me an entrepreneur?
If look, people who are engaged in solving a problem, whatever the problem is,
Yeah.
in general, whether they solve it in a fundamentally different way or are
Mm.
doing a new to business, they're entrepreneurs. Yeah, everybody's an entrepreneur.
Okay.
The only thing is which entrepreneurs are more likely to grow
Okay.
faster than others. And that's where EO comes in to say,
Mm.
based on the presence of these three elements,
Mm.
this sort of entrepreneur is more likely to grow faster than an entrepreneur who's not doing these three elements, right?
Oh, okay.
Um, and so it's really about how faster you're likely to grow, and
Mm.
as an outcome of that, how many more jobs you can create.
Mm.
So it comes back to the box thing, the example that I make. If I'm selling a white box,
Yeah.
there's a need for a white box. I
Yeah.
create a white box and I sell a white box. Guess what? We're both going to stay in the market and sort of sell white boxes. Yeah.
Mm.
But until I decide, actually, probably a green box works a lot better
Yeah.
than, a white one. Or actually, let me add a pink range.
Yes.
Until that happens, there's no real shift in the market, right?
That's
So
it.
it's really about how then you're shifting the market. Then I'm like, actually, making a box with my hands alone is probably not very productive. So
Mm.
I'm going to invest in maybe some machinery, or you know, um, I'm going to use a different type of material so that it can fold faster. Those are the sort of things we're talking about
Mm.
from an innovation perspective, because now that shifts the market completely.
Nice.
You know,
Nice.
yeah.
Interesting. No, and now I've learned a lot about EO, high growth enterprises, job creation. So, what would be your message in closing to an entrepreneur who's out there, in especially our township entrepreneurs, our rural entrepreneurs who might not necessarily have the social capital to navigate the streets? What would you tell them? How best can they go about this journey? Because this journey is really difficult, and yeah, they could get all the wisdom that is available. So yeah, please shoot.
I think ultimately it starts off with being curious. These words, risk taking, proactive, innovation, are very um, big words. They can be really big words, but I
Yeah.
think it starts off with being curious
Mm-hmm.
and understanding why people behave the way they do.
Yeah.
Why is it that if you are trying to solve a particular problem, understand the problem. What is
Mm.
the root cause of the problem? And actually experiment with different ways of solving that problem. Think broader, think bigger in terms of where else can you utilize your solution to solve, or rather, how pervasive is that problem? How big is that problem?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think that alone is going to start creating um, a lens. And the other thing is, how differently can you solve that problem?
Mm.
Is it a problem that is worth caring about to solve? You know, who else is solving it? How
Mm-hmm.
differently are you going to do it?
Yeah.
And actually, if you've realized that this problem is all across the continent, what is your plan to solve that problem?
That's it.
you know are you going to start off in your home community, and then you're going to partner with other people to scale up your business? So it's really about the way you think about the problem. Fall in love with solving that problem. And if
Mm.
that problem really isn't, you feel like it's really not going to give you the growth that you need, it's actually okay to try looking for another problem to solve.
Yeah.
I think people stay married to a particular problem, and
Yeah.
then they don't think about, you know, actually maybe there's a just right next to the problem you're solving, there's actually another problem, and maybe that problem
Yeah.
actually has, a lot more people experiencing that problem, and therefore you have an opportunity to grow your business a lot better. And I think for people who are trying to just think about how they invest in entrepreneurs to
Mm-hmm.
create outcomes or create an enabling environment, particularly from a policy perspective, it's important to understand that the fundamentals need to be in place.
Mm-hmm.
We need to teach people how to create, be creative. It
That's
comes
it.
back to the right education. It comes back to people need to be empowered, from a health perspective, a food perspective,
Mm,
social safety perspective. We need to think about gender because, you know, so it comes back to the fundamentals. Unfortunately, it's
mm,
not just about another incubation program that's
mm,
going to magically create this. But for incubators, if you're in the incubator business, focusing
mm,
on those fundamental thinking skills is super important, and this fundamental behavioral skills is super
mm.
important because that's what ultimately is going to create the growth, not the
Nice.
level of compliance, not the level of accounting,
Mm,
not the level of tax or whatever.
mm.
Yes, those need to be in place, but ultimately a business that's going to grow fast
Yeah.
is really about is underpinned by a particular way of thinking and a particular way of behaving.
Wow. That was quite a lot of wisdom. Thank you very much for your time. But before you go, though, I know you had your podcast called Wellness for Entrepreneurs, and you did 2 seasons, which were quite successful. When is it coming back? Please say the date so that we can hold you to account. Is it coming back in the same name, or is it? Mm-hmm.
Wellness for Entrepreneurs is definitely coming back, but it's coming back as something else. So it will be
Okay.
rebranding.
Okay.
It will come into another podcast that I'm launching.
Okay.
The podcast that I'm launching will focus on entrepreneurship, on career development, as well as policy making. As you can see, I speak to all these three themes.
Nice.
So I'm very excited about that. And I say I will not give you an exact date,
Mm.
but I'll give you a month,
Okay.
September and October.
That's not 1 month hour.
I'll give it 2 months.
Ish, this flu. Yeah. Okay. No, that's fine. Uh, Please, when it does come out and you're ready, you can always come back on the Akalytica Lounge to announce the arrival of your new podcast. And we know it's always going to be good because Wellness for Entrepreneurs was quite a good podcast that we really enjoyed. All the best with the new one. Thank you very much.